Thank you. I'm Beth Cooper, Knox County, and here to talk again about GE220. I'm very encouraged to hear you may send this back to committee. In fact, I'm scheduled to come here Wednesday, so if you think it may go back to committee and you want to just scratch your nose and let me know, I'll go to my kid's soccer game instead, but no, okay. There's something that hasn't been brought up. It sounds like there was no intent to exclude people with this policy change, and what we heard from Mr. Dupler is that the understanding was the word sex would encompass orientation and gender identity. And you're basing that on EEOC policy, right? They're not a law-making body, and the TN, what was you say, Human Rights Commission bases their stance on EEOC, but what you haven't brought up, and it's really important, the other handout I brought you was from the Department of Justice. They do not agree that gender identity and sexual orientation is covered under sex. Up until February 22nd, DOJ did, because the Obama administration sent out that guidance that said we consider the word sex encompasses these other things. But Jeff Sessions sent that out and said very, very clearly, and I have it here in front of you, that they do not agree with that. They interpret the word sex as only biological sex. So while EEOC may have something on their website today, I would not trust that that is going to be there for very long, and to have our policy rest on that would be very dangerous. You do need to keep this language in there. We received an email from Ms. Hill, I think, today saying, please know, the board wants to cover all employees in capital letters, all. And that's wonderful. But let me put this thought in your head too. If you just make it shorter and say we're still covering all, it's not unlike if someone were to say, well, Black Lives Matter, and someone says all lives matter. Well, okay, but you don't need to gloss over or ignore that there are some people with special vulnerabilities. And employees do not all run into the same kind of harassment issues. So, you know, your school employees with gender identity differences than the majority or sexual orientation are going to be vulnerable to harassment and discrimination in different ways. And it's okay to have extra words and extra language to note that. It doesn't diminish the protections of any of the other employees. So please don't change it for brevity, especially don't change it thinking that everyone's still protected, because they will not be. Department of Justice is not behind you on that, okay? So that's the most important thing I want you to know, and I have one other thing. Oh, please do, however, accept the proposed change that admits that the director of school may not be male. That would be a great change. Lower down in your, right now it says Director of Schools, his designee, and of course it may not always be a male, so that would be a great thing to change. But you cannot leave that language out. So I hope and I urge you to send it back to committee on Wednesday and consider all of these points that came up. Thank you.
Thank you.